Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Thank you also for the presidency. On behalf of the organizing committee and all the professionals from this Andalusian School of Public Health, it is an honor, but also my pleasure, to welcome all of you to this 5th conference on EUPHA Conference on Migrant and Ethnic Minority Health. I can tell you that we, from the organizing committee, we have been doing, and still we are trying to do our best to be able to facilitate this important, in the sense of pertinent, meeting in the current context in Europe. So, very welcome, all of you, and I hope you will enjoy Granada, the meeting, fruitful meeting and useful socially talking meeting, and also this school, which is your public health school. Thanks a lot.
Well, on behalf of the Section for Migrant and Ethnic Minority Health of European Public Health Association, I'd like to welcome you all for this conference. The section is a framework for European initiatives and collaboration regarding migrant and ethnic minority health. It has more than 600 members. Many of you are here. And it has regular conferences, and this is number 5 on European migrant health. As all of you and all of us know, migrants are often seen as a vulnerable group. However, it's also groups with strengths from which we can learn. One of the main headlines of the Danish, one of the big Danish newspapers 2 days ago presented the new fact that life expectancy of non-Western immigrants was 1 year longer than the average life expectancy of the general population. So there is a lot to learn, a lot to do, a lot to study among migrants and ethnic minorities regarding health issues. I'd like to use this opportunity to thank the Andalusian School of Public Health for organizing this conference, stressing the European crisis as a general framework and offering this beautiful city of Granada as a unique local setting, attracting a large group, more than 350 attendants, excellent speakers, participants. So I'm looking very much forward to 3 days of intensive, highly relevant and qualified presentations and discussions in this very intensive and demanding program that has been established for this conference. So I wish you an inspiring and interactive event. Welcome everybody. Thank you.
I will ask for a minute of silence in memory of all the migrant people died in the Mediterranean Sea trying to reach our continent in Europe. giving the floor to our guest in the presidency table, I would like to remind you that you have in your emails a draft of the Granada Declaration. Please feel free to send any input ID, and we will meet on Friday night at the end of the day, EUPHA president and also the two committees, in order to integrate and to be read it, and afterwards trying to move in the European institutions after the Congress. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you, first of all, the Deputy Rector of the University of Granada, Dr. Ignacio Molina.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to send you a very warm greeting from the rector of the University of Granada, Professor González Lodeiro, who asked me to send his warmest regards and wishes for a very pleasant stay in Granada. I would like also to congratulate Dr. Carlos Artundo, the head of the organizing committee, for the extraordinary work that ended successfully in the organization of this conference. The University of Granada and the Andalusian School of Public Health are embarked in a growing and fruitful collaboration. We share many ideals. We try to make the best for our students, and we try to take the advancement of science to one step forward. In this sense, we've been working together for the past years in extremely successful programs such as the Erasmus Mundus Master's Program in Public Health. This is just only one example, but I think that is a very appropriate example because it represents how we can together, working together, take or gather the best of the two institutions and to achieve the success for our students. This growing collaboration between the public institutions in Granada pursues a common goal, what we have called the brand Granada Health, Granada Salud. It is a very ambitious goal that requires the close collaboration of all public institutions involved in health in Granada. Of course, the Andalusian public health system, the University of Granada, the Andalusian School of Public Health, and all research institutions that are present in Granada. And this ambitious goal of making Granada an international reference in healthcare and science in the biomedical field is sustained in a very ambitious project, which is the Health Science Technology Park, a unique space that combines teaching, healthcare, health research and company development, 4 vectors that ensure the possibility to combine and to translate the knowledge into the creation of jobs and wealthness. The topic that gathers us today, which is the migrant and ethnic minority health, as we are all aware, is a very controversial topic. In my opinion, is a topic that should be confronted from the scientific point of view and we should look at this matter from the professional view only, and we should try to devoid this topic of the political charge that surrounds everything that has to do with immigration. I think that I'm not saying anything original if I say that keeping every citizen, every person living in a country healthy is a goal that only enhances the health of all individuals, because if some people get sick, obviously, if they suffer from transmittable diseases, is something that is going to impinge upon the rest of the society. So it is in the best interest of all of us to keep everybody happy and healthy, and for that it is extremely important that we provide sufficient health care to everyone living in our countries. I think that we have to remember, all of us, now that we have seen these devastating pictures of the immigrants trying to reach the coast of Europe, that not long ago we all were immigrants. There were very, very important immigrant movements in Spain, in Italy, in Ireland, in Germany throughout the 20th century. And in every case, all these immigrants found a promising land who received them with open arms. And in turn, this flow of immigrants contributed tremendously to the prosperity of the countries where they finally ended. Because of this, because we have to remember that not long ago we were also immigrants, it is especially appropriate that now we revisit this topic from the health point of view. Thank you very much, Carlos, for organizing this meeting. It is extremely important, and it is a call to our souls. It is something that we have to remember, that we have to preserve the rights of all individuals living in a society. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best for your stay in Granada, and I wish you a very, very happy stay in this beautiful city. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I would now like to pass the floor to the World Health Organization, Santino Severoni, who is coordinator of public health and migration at the WHO Regional Office for Europe.
Thank you, Professor Krasny, for the kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, Professor Artundo. We have gathered in Granada this week to discuss the impact of the current systematic crisis on health throughout Europe, and more specifically on the health of some of the most vulnerable group in the region as migrants and ethnic minorities. I'm expecting an audience of experts, so I don't want to spend too much time on figures, on numbers, but I like to recall that our region, the WHO European region, has to face with the reality of an estimate of 77 million of migrants. 8% of the total population of our region is migrant. 52% of them are women, and this migration inflow account for 70% of the population increase between 2005 and 2010. A very rough estimate is that probably between 2.6 up to 6.4 millions are migrant in irregular situation in our region. It is widely known that the austerity measures adopted as the solution to overcome the crisis have indeed contributed to the increase of health inequalities, both among the different European countries within them. In this scenario, migrants have often been left apart, even if in some cases without any type of health coverage. And health is an essential element for migrants' well-being and contribution to societies. Nevertheless, migration is a topic that has been frequently politically utilized. However, the public health aspect of migration are rarely taken into account in the political discourse. Only when, unfortunately, tragedy as the one occurred in Lampedusa last October, or the more recently one in Ceuta took place, and I was really appreciating the opening of this conference with a recall of the people dying crossing the Mediterranean Sea. All in these circumstances, these issues related to public health aspect of migration are taken into consideration by political and media agenda. Still, if we look, for example, at the numbers of migrants arrived in Italy, in Sicily, landed there since the beginning of 2014, this is already 10 times more than what was observed in the same period of time of 2013. And as you can imagine, those figures are heavily utilized by politicians, particularly some political parties, in view of the upcoming European elections. This political use of migration will keep happening in the future, and the public health sector will have to play an active role if it wants to overcome the current situation in which migrants' health become part of the political agenda, mainly in emergency-related events. Therefore, the main challenge is how can public health enter and generate a change in migration politics? Well, there is an urgent need to increase the political awareness on migrants and health minorities' health in order to include the health component of those population groups into the political discourse. We believe that it is important to ensure a good level of quality. This debate has to be driven by evidence and research on how to reduce health inequalities in migrant population is certainly a big return for the receiving countries. And there is an increasing need of sharing knowledge and best practices throughout the European region, so countries can apply those measures that have been proved successful in other territories facing similar challenges. To address those needs, what WHO is trying to do? Well, we try to intervene at a regional policy level, and more specifically in trying to tackle the public health aspect of migrants. From the regional wide point of view, was launched the Health 2020 policy framework, new European policy framework. The Health 2020 aims to improving the health and well-being of all population in Europe by reducing health inequalities and improving governance for health. Evidence shows that what works on average does necessarily work for all. The Health 2020 is a powerful tool and a great opportunity if used properly, as it pays particular attention to the most disadvantaged as well as to creating resilient communities, and furthermore, from the political point of view, has been approved by the 53 countries of the WHO European region. More specifically, a new project was designed under the Health 2020 umbrella to address migrants' health, the project of public health aspect of migration in Europe, which is based at the WHO European Office for Investment for Health and Development in Venice, in Italy. The public health aspect of migration in Europe project was designed as a response to the events in Northern Africa and the Middle East, which started in 2011. Given the dramatic increase of migration and the health challenge it posed, the WHO Regional Office for Europe started working closely with the most affected or interested member states, helping them strengthening the health sector's preparedness and public health capacity to better address emergency-related migrations, in identifying best practices to engage in a cross-sectorial national and international political dialogue on migration. Until now, among the different project activities, we have focused on immigrants receiving European countries, mainly the Mediterranean ones. An ad hoc tool to assess the health system capacity to address the need of migrants in case of large and sudden movement of population, particularly irregular migrants, was developed and utilized to conduct a number of assessments in a number of South European countries. During the upcoming months, we are preparing to assess also Spain. We are discussing with the Ministry of Health in these days, and Greece, and 3 more countries are planning to be covered by September. Reports on the mission assessment for all countries visited were developed jointly with the respective authorities in order to identify strategic areas of collaboration as well to document the analysis conducted and share best practices. With the aim of disseminating migrants' health-related information and contributing to the creation of an international dialogue around this topic, we have also developed other tools of communication. First, a special site on migrants and health is now available under the website of the WHO Regional Office for Europe. Second, we are currently finalizing the first issue of the Public Health Aspect of Migration in Europe newsletter, which is being produced in collaboration with the University of Pécs in Hungary. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you that have accepted to be part of the newsletter editorial board. This newsletter aims at bringing all stakeholders together to discuss about how to better address migrants' health. We understand that nowadays the solution to improve migrants' health often lies also outside the health sector. For this reason, an intersectorial as well as a whole of government approach is needed, and the Public Health Aspect of Migration in Europe newsletter aims at providing a virtual platform to exchange information and generate this type of debate and collaboration. In conclusion, history has taught us that the phenomenon of migration will continue in the upcoming years and decades, and migration is a reality which we cannot ignore any longer, particularly in the health sector. Well, the public health sector has to respond by filling in the gap of research on the topic, generating evidence-based work, and focusing attention to creation of the adequate policy to respond effectively to the health challenges imposed by migration. I would like to conclude thanking once more the organizers for this conference in this beautiful place, and also in a country, in a region with particularly sensibilities about the issue of migration, with a public health school with a very solid tradition on in this area of work. So I would like to thank the Public Health Association section and Migration Ethnic Minority Health for supporting this conference, as well as the Andalusian School of Public Health and Andalusian Public Health Authorities, and the Healthcare and Social Service of Catalonia for making possible. I would like to wish you 3 successful days of conference. I'm really looking forward for the Granada Declaration and to be active contributor to that. And we are looking to collaboration of all of you with a new challenge started in our region through the new policy framework, the project on public health and migration. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Marcus Brenner, Director of the European Center for Disease Control.
Buenos días. Es un placer para mí estar hoy aquí con ustedes en Granada. It's great to be here. It's a fantastic city. I would like to thank the Andalusian School, and I would like to thank the EUPHA for organizing this important event and invited me as speaker. As you all know, the issue of health among migrant populations entering the EU has been receiving increased attention during the last couple of years. It was the Portuguese presidency in 2007 and the Spanish EU presidency in 2010 that were instrumental in highlighting the importance of health among migrants. However, when talking about migrant health, we must not forget that migrants are comparatively healthy on a population level. Nevertheless, some migrant subpopulations seem to be more vulnerable to some infectious diseases. And of course, migrant health is a lot more than just infectious diseases, but I'm talking on behalf of ACDC, and our mandate is in infectious diseases. The draft Council conclusions of the Portuguese EU presidency welcomed ECDC to produce a comprehensive report on migration and infectious diseases in the EU. And in 2008, ECDC hosted an expert meeting to set down the priorities within this area. And several of you here today participated in that meeting. And at this meeting, HIV and TB were identified as priority areas related to the health of migrants. According to the most recent available data, migrants account for a significant proportion of diagnosed HIV cases in the EU. On average, 1 in 3 HIV diagnoses in 2011 were among migrants. So migrants are disproportionately affected by HIV in Europe. Looking at the situation of HIV among migrants, what are the messages we need to convey to policymakers? The first very important message I would like to convey is that we have evidence that migrants are being infected after arrival to the EU. Results from studies in the UK indicate that more than half of all migrants diagnosed with HIV were probably infected in United Kingdom. Obviously, this has huge implications for developing and implementing primary prevention programs targeted towards migrants. Many countries in the EU do not implement prevention programs at scale, in the assumption that migrants are already infected with HIV when entering their country. And this is not the case. It is now time to rethink HIV prevention and tailor programs targeted towards migrants. My second message concerns late diagnosis of HIV in Europe. Overall, half of those diagnosed with HIV in 2012 were diagnosed late, too late. But what is striking from the available data is that migrants are diagnosed later than other key populations, such as people who inject drugs and men having sex with men. This is again an indication that migrants are not accessing health services to the same degree as host populations. And the third message I would like to convey today concerns access to HIV treatment of undocumented migrants. In 2012, only half of the EU countries provided HIV treatment to undocumented migrants. This is, in my view, unacceptable. There is a strong argument from a public health perspective to ensure early access to HIV treatment, as we know that this reduces morbidity and mortality significantly. Also, the transmission of HIV is significantly reduced if detected early and treated appropriately. And so far, I have only focused on HIV. But if we look at the situation of tuberculosis in Europe, we know that 25% of all reported TB cases in the EU were diagnosed in foreign-born populations in 2011. And in 11 of these countries, more than 50% of the diagnosed TB cases were among foreign-born populations. So what can we do to address these issues and signs of inequalities in health? We need to ensure that all migrants, have better access to healthcare services. Last month in Athens, ECDC organized a technical meeting on migrant health and infectious diseases, together with the Greek presidency to the EU Council and the Greek Public Health Institute, KILPNO. The specific topic of the meeting was about public health benefits of screening for infectious diseases among newly arrived migrants to the EU. EU countries expressed the need to develop guidance on screening for infectious diseases among migrants. So together with the European Commission, ECDC will explore the possibilities of developing such guidance. ECDC will provide the Commission with the necessary evidence regarding the screening of infectious diseases among migrants. I would also like to mention our ongoing good collaboration with the WHO and the International Organization for Migration. And together we are currently developing an evidence-based framework on migrant health and infectious diseases. The aim of this framework is to provide countries with tools and indicators that would allow for better public health decision making. Now, I would like to stress that we, as public health professionals, must never forget why we do what we do. And my three main home messages today are: given the evidence of HIV transmission after arrival to the EU, it's time to rethink prevention and tailor programs targeted towards migrants. And this goes beyond HIV, and I count on your expertise here. We need to ensure that all migrants, also the undocumented, have better access to health care services. And finally, we must not forget that on a population level, and especially when taking into account non-communicable diseases, migrants are comparatively healthy. And I know that you are all here today as public health professionals committed to improve the health of migrants. And I would like to ensure you that ECDC is also committed on this very important task. And on a personal note, I would like to tell you that I'm in fact a migrant myself. I moved from the Netherlands to Sweden. And I know from my own experience with my family how difficult it is to adapt to another healthcare system, even if you have access and even if money is no issue. And I really would like to call upon, take into account the perspective of migrants if you talk about health systems. I wish you 2 fruitful days. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Max Brenner, for giving us this focus on both prevention, early detection of diseases, and access to health care for everybody, which are really key issues for this conference, I think. And I'll now pass the floor to European Union, to Isabel de la Mata, who is Principal Advisor for Public Health at DG Sanco. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Buenos días, good morning. Professor Krasny, Dr. Artundo, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for inviting me to this EUPHA conference on migrants and ethnic minorities in health. And this is really important for me because I am a member of CESPAS and EUPHA since '86, so there is already a while. This conference will provide us an opportunity to exchange information and, more importantly, to share our views and concerns about the effect of the economic crisis to the vulnerability for disadvantaged population, especially for migrants and ethnic minorities. In an era of austerity, some countries are implementing new strategies in the field of healthcare and social welfare policies, which have often unfavorable impact on the most vulnerable groups in the society, such as the migrants and the ethnic minorities. In times of economic crisis, this may be understandable, but at the same time, such policies are short-sighted. We need to shift the still widely held perception of health expenditure on ethnic minorities and migrants as primarily a cost rather than an investment, and to pass across the message that health contributes to inclusive economic growth. Most of the migrants and the ethnic minorities are healthy. However, some of them who are facing the difficult living conditions, unemployment, poor housing conditions, discrimination and social exclusion are facing higher risk than the general population. They may also have different cultural or linguistic background which affect their health and healthcare and which may represent a challenge for the health systems. Furthermore, some migrants, especially children, pregnant women, older people, those who are in an irregular situation or who have experienced war, refugee status, or bad living conditions may have a much greater need for preventive care and treatment. The provision of health care is, of course, entirely a responsibility for the member states, but access to health care is a point high on the agenda of the European Commission. The right to health care is guaranteed under international and European human rights law. These standards apply to everyone regardless of their immigration status. Although this doesn't oblige EU member states to guarantee access to all health services on an equal footing with citizens, it does impose some minimum requirements such as access to emergency health care, such as health care for children or antenatal delivery and postnatal health care for mothers. The work on health of migrants and the ethnic minorities underpins the Commission's policy on investing in health, which established health in the European Union 2020 strategy for growth and employment. Our starting point is that health is a value in itself and is also a precondition for economic growth and social cohesion. Initiatives related to migrants' issues are also an important part of the Commission work on reducing health inequalities between the European Union member states, regions, and between the different socioeconomic groups. We know that differences in social and economic conditions are major drivers of inequalities in health, and migrants and ethnic minorities fall in this category. We must therefore redouble our efforts to ensure that health is for everybody in the European Union. And we have to remember that the migrants are here and are here to stay. As I will have the pleasure to be with you again tomorrow in one of the plenary sessions, I will present at that moment some of the action that the European Commission is taking. And I would like also to discuss at that moment on one of the slides that Professor Sprenger presented about the difference between the member states and the access and the treatments. Further action is needed, particularly the development of integrated policies at national level to address the causes of health inequalities and more specifically the impact of economic crisis to migrants and minorities. These include inequalities in the access to health care, as well as aspects such as income, education, living standards, working conditions, and health-related behaviors that are affected by the social grading, such as tobacco use, harmful alcohol consumption, or poor nutrition. To address all these issues successfully, we need to rely on effective and sustainable health systems, which can ensure access to healthcare for all, including for migrants and minorities. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission fully recognizes that improving the health of the migrants and minorities in Europe is not something that can be achieved by the national governments acting alone. It is clear that there are opportunities for collaboration across the European Union in addressing the health issues linked to migration. And I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion that we will have during these 2 days. And if you don't know, I want to, just to make you aware that in 2 weeks in Athens, there will be an informal meeting of the health ministers of the European Union, and the main topic of the discussion will be migrants and public health. So there is an opportunity to present the conclusion of the Granada Declaration at that moment and to make your voice tackle the ministers and arrive to the minister in order to ensure that the discussion and the decision that they will take into account what we have been discussing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. We will use, for sure, that opportunity to be able, to let our messages from this conference to this informal meeting of the health ministers in Greece. Now, it is my pleasure, and special and close pleasure, to give the floor to Ana Maria Rey. Ana Maria Rey is the General Secretary of Social Policies at the Department of Equity, Health and Social Policies here here at the government of Andalusia. It is a pleasure, Ana María, for you to give the floor.
Gracias, Carlos. Yo voy a dirigirme a ustedes en mi idioma, voy a hacerlo en castellano. Dado que están en Andalucía, con los aparatos de traducción simultánea. Señalan al diferente como algo peligroso, como algo nocivo, como un delincuente. Ya lo sabemos, en Europa ya lo hemos vivido y tenemos que aprender de nuestros errores. No podemos permitir que una situación económica crítica, que además responde a intereses, me van a permitir que sea políticamente incorrecta, de avariciosos, señale a quienes menos culpa tienen de todos los problemas de la crisis y hagan pagar a las personas y a las poblaciones más vulnerables los efectos de esa crisis de avaricia. En ese sentido, es imprescindible que en Europa seamos capaces de llegar a un gran pacto que sea impulsado por las instituciones europeas, en el que se reconozca que los derechos humanos deben de ser la bandera que guíe toda nuestra actuación. Fundamentalmente los derechos humanos. Europa tiene una tradición histórica de justicia social, de batalla por la justicia social, y no puede rendirse a los discursos fáciles y poco documentados de convertirse en un castillo que se cierre a cal y canto, colocando en las fronteras vallas que rompan a la gente en mil pedazos. Ante eso hay que reaccionar. Es verdad que tenemos que hablar de salud, pero para poder hablar de salud primero tenemos que hablar del respeto a los derechos humanos y de las bases que establezcan la justicia social en Europa. Que trabajemos en esa Europa en la que siempre hemos creído, en la Europa que ha sido inspiración para el conjunto del mundo. Una Europa abierta, capaz de pensar, de imaginar, de soñar un mundo mejor. Y un mundo mejor abierto para todos. Yo no sé cuándo llegará el momento que seamos capaces de aprender de la naturaleza que tanto nos enseña. La naturaleza nos enseña que los sistemas más preparados, los más potentes, los más fuertes, son aquellos donde convive la diversidad. Porque cada cual aporta lo mejor de sí mismo. Porque si somos solo uno, solo uniforme, podría pasar como con los campos de olivos de Andalucía, que si sembramos todo un campo de olivos y entra una plaga, acabe con todo el campo de olivo. Con las personas puede pasar igual. si somos todos tan iguales, si somos todos tan uniformes? En cuanto que nos afecte una cosita, acaba con todos nosotros. Lo que nos va a dar riqueza es ser capaz de convivir unos con otros, el no tenerle miedo a la mezcla, el no tener miedo al recibir y al dar lo mejor que cada ser humano, proceda de donde proceda, tenga. En ese sentido, yo creo que de aquí debemos hacer desde Granada esa propuesta importante al conjunto de Europa y de Europa al mundo, de que no hay que tener miedo a la gente, de que las personas, ante todo, somos personas que no buscamos más que ser felices en este trocito de tiempo, en este trocito de tierra, en este trocito de mundo que nos ha tocado vivir. En ese sentido, yo sé que ustedes van a hacer una importantísima aportación a este proyecto, que van a ser capaces de aportar la evidencia científica que necesita este proyecto y que van a ser capaces de transmitirlo con emoción al conjunto del mundo. Que tengan unas buenas jornadas de trabajo, que disfruten de la ciudad de Granada y, por supuesto, que sean felices.
Thank you very much to these distinct speakers from important European and national regional agencies. We'll hear more from some of these during the plenary sessions over the conference, and others as well, like the IOM and other important agencies that will be presented in the debates and presentations over the next few days. Thank you very much. I would now suggest that everybody get 5 minutes to stand up and just move a bit, but staying within this room, because in a few minutes we'll start the first keynote speaker. But before that, maybe Carlos would like to conclude.
Yes, please don't leave the room. It's very complicated to come back again. And we are going to enjoy the opening ceremony with our colleague, Professor Martin McKee, which is, I think, a very good news for all of us. Please amplify our ideas, our reflections, our messages. Most of you, many of you, you are Twitter's activists. Please use our hashtag Twitter to be able to amplify our ideas, our messages, the things that we want to be amplified. Sorry? Yes. In 1 minute, Professor Martin will give our opening speech. Thanks a lot.